Right, well, I'm going to stop that one because I'm now going to ask Sir Cliff Richard if, in fact, he actually did do all the things he said he planned on doing.
I did, and good morning, everybody.
Yes, lovely to see you back
it's
here.
nice to be back here. I mean, I feel like I'm home. I am home.
Well, you've sat in that chair enough times now. I can't remember how many.
I'd like to make a request. Could you get me a new chair for next year?
Well, you've worn it out, I think.
But you know, yeah, I did the things I wanted to do. I mentioned that business about going to New York and possibly making a record that I couldn't talk about. Well, it's come out already. I met for the first time when I went to New York a group called the Piano Guys, who are, I mean, I don't understand these things. They're a YouTube phenomenon. And they've had millions of streamings on YouTube. Even streamings, I'm not even sure quite what that means other than it's free. And so they wanted me to sing a song with them, and it was called It's Gonna Be Okay. And in fact, the record turned out so well, they decided to release it. When I say release it, oh, and it's so different now. When we released a record, it got somewhere in the charts. Nowadays, you see nothing about it really. There's so many different charts. And I'm not quite sure any of them to do with buying records anymore. It's all how many things are streamed. So anyway, I did that, and the guys were fantastic. They actually are two very, very good classical musicians, and two other guys that sing and do other bits and bobs for them. And one of them produces. One of the guy I sang with, he actually produces their music for them. So I got that one underway, and of course I did my tour.
Now, is it not true that people have been telling me that you kicked off in Cork and then it was all in the historic castles and places of historic interest throughout the UK, that you were kicking in the shows with that particular song?
Yeah, well, I thought I went to the Albert Hall while I was rehearsing for the tour. They'd said we're at the Albert Hall for two shows on a Saturday or something like that. And they said, would you join me? I said, well, I can't join you for the first one because I'm rehearsing, but I could come after rehearsals and do the second show with you. So I did. And I went there, they introduced me, the crowd, of course, at the Albert Hall, they know me. We did a really good performance of it. The crowd loved it. So when I came back, I said, look, I think we should open the show with this. And then during rehearsals, we were loving it so much. I said to my MD, I said, I think I'd like to make it a sandwich so that we open with it and then we'll close with it. And it really worked well, because by the second time it came on, everybody was out of their seats and they were bouncing around. So it was a really, really good thing that happened to me. Really almost the first thing I recorded after a long period.
Well, of course, the last album was just fabulous rock and roll that we all know, for reasons beyond control, took a while to be released. And that literally leapt up the charts at a rate of knots, as you probably were well aware. Every single day we were monitoring it and seeing it jump to another place, and another place, and another place.
But for me, it's I work now with no expectations really of what happened to The Shadows and I when we first started. People don't buy CDs or albums the way they used to. I mean, I was told once that nowadays you could be number one in England, for instance, with like a 35,000 sales a week. Well, when The Shadows and I had our number ones, we were selling 80,000 a day. Yes. Sometimes, I mean, so things change. And so I say to myself, okay, if people are prepared to listen to music I record, I love doing it, and that's my favorite thing. I love recording. So I went into the studio, and of course, not only this album, but the first one, the Fabulous Rock and Roll Songbook, these are songs, as you know, which are in my zone.
That one even.
That one, yeah. So I found it really pleasant to do it, and I worked in Nashville for a number of years now, and I've got to know some of the musicians. One of them, Steve Mandela, produces the stuff for me, actually writes things for me now, and has started writing for. I'm looking to record a new album sometime next year, and I don't even know which label it's going to be, but I've got my friends to say. I said to them, "Can you write me stuff, new stuff?"
Talking about which label. Do you realise it was 50 years ago last Thursday that I believe you signed with EMI?
Oh, yeah, but they said that, but I can't believe it because my record came out in August.
Yes.
August the 28th, but I recorded it in May when I was still 17. I mean, I was 18. On my birthday, we were at Leicester de Montfort Hall, and Move It went to number 2 in the charts.
And it's the first of only 2 occasions when you've worked on your birthday.
Yes, well, yes.
Well, the other one was, of course, the Albert Hall at the 75th.
So I mean, so I don't expect I don't expect the kind of success we had before, but what the Piano Guys has given me is an entree into a world I don't really understand. The internet, I don't really quite figure out how. I mean, it always bothers me, Spotify and things like that. No, I don't think artists and writers are getting any money for that. When you stream, it's free. And you think, oh, how's our industry going to survive if people are not being prepared to pay?
Precisely.
I mean, I feel guilty. I only have to pay $10 a month in Barbados, and I play Spotify all day, every day, for the whole month. $10, and now you can't even buy a CD with only 10 songs on it for $10.
Yeah.
So I think writers and singers, producers, musicians, they're not making any money anymore.
Well, of course, I'm going to play a track from the album we waited 2 years for. But first of all, we've got a question here that I must ask you. In fact, Dan, with Con and Dan, as you know, the guys who follow you all over the world even, right? Con had a birthday yesterday, so many happy returns.
Oh, happy birthday, yeah.
Yep. They bumped into you and Bonnie, who had to go home on Thursday because she's busy, I know. And you got together last Sunday, I think it was, and you did a bit of an impromptu. And the question that's come in from several, including Dan, from Sarah James, Carol Bundy and Linda Whitlock, they're all asking, would you consider doing another concert on the beach in Albufeira, and possibly even with Bonnie Tyler?
Oh, well, I mean, collaborating is the big in the thing now, so singing and being with Bonnie on the same kind of show would be fantastic. We get on so well. By the way, she did send her love. I told her I was coming here.
Yes, and she popped me an email to say, have a great morning. I'm so sorry, darling, I can't be there. But she's coming back. She'll be on the show in September, by the way.
I'm sure she will be, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm open for it, really. But, that beach concert was a very special one. And it was the 200th birthday of Albufeira, being a town, or I don't know what the terminology is. And they asked me if I would do a birthday concert for them, so I did. And there were all those thousands and thousands and thousands of people on the beach. And but I don't like to. I like to be asked to do things, and it's. I mean, fans are writing me all the time. Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I had friends come to see me when I was in Greenwich, the last concert at Greenwich of my tour, this current tour that I just finished. 10 18-year-olds, one of them the son of a really good friend of mine who was about to go to Ibiza for his birthday on the 2nd of July, which was my last concert. When he found out that I was going to be at Greenwich, he said to his mum, no, cancel it, we'll go a day late, and my friends and I want to be there. And I'm thinking, I said, Adam's 18, you sure he said that? And she said, yeah, no, they don't want to go, they want to come see you first. So I was thrilled that 18-year-olds might be interested. Well, they were overboard afterwards, the champagne probably helped. And they all said to me, why don't you play Glastonbury? And I said, look, what,
they haven't asked me.
They haven't asked me, no, and if they asked me, I'd really seriously consider it. But I was just thrilled that age group, once they get to hear you, and this is the problem, I think, with everything now, I don't think we get the same choices we used to get 30, 40, 50 years ago. If you listen to any radio station, really, unless you listen all day long, you don't really hear everything. Whereas I remember my records being played in between Max Bygraves and Elvis and Frank Sinatra,
Frankie Vaughan.
We were all played, and therefore I always used to think that meant that we were like a huge supermarket. And sometimes you'd say Cliff Richard there, George Michael, and you pick out, but you got the choice. So nowadays I feel that sometimes. I know that there's a lot of young people, they say to me, who do you like? I said, oh, I love Boz Scaggs, I love Bonnie Raitt. And they go, who? And no one's ever heard of them. And Bonnie Raitt's probably one of the best slide guitarists in the world, and a great singer. Fantastic. And Boz Scaggs, I just love what he does. He's bluesy sometimes, poppy sometimes. So the choices aren't there for everybody who listening to the radio now. It's just one of those things.
Life's full of surprises. I always thought we had people of a certain age would listen to this show, but I've since found out there's a lot of younger people actually like the music that you and I grew up and played back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh yeah, and if you like something that comes from that period, it doesn't mean you have to dislike what's coming out today.
No, not at
It's a matter of saying, okay, because I mean, I must admit, again, I mentioned on this album, I think, in the sleeve notes, that I was at a party of a friend of mine who's really into that 50s, 60s period. And whenever his dinner parties are over, he'll play all that old stuff, and we were all singing along with all these old songs. And his son, at that time, 14 or 15, his girlfriend was there staying with them for a holiday in Barbados, this was. And he came up to me after, he said, do you think, let's call her Amy, I can't remember her name. Do you think Amy and I would be singing the songs we like today, the way you're singing the songs that you liked way back? And I said, you know, if you really love them, you will be singing them. Of course you will.
So he's talking like 50 years on.
Yeah.
Well, if
So
I'm still doing that show, I'll be able to tell you.
Well, I just wrote in there on my sleeve note. I just said, well, I just hope, here's hoping that you will be singing the songs that you loved, the way we sing the songs that we loved. Because that means that they touched you in some way, emotionally, helped you get through life in some way. You know, that's what music does, and it should do.
Well, you mentioned about being asked to go to Glastonbury. I'm going to make the comment. I think if you're asked, you ought to do it. And I have a shrewd suspicion that you go down a little bit better than Jeremy Corbyn. And it could be a case of not roll over Beethoven, but roll over Jeremy.
Well, of course, Jeremy, to be fair, he hasn't had a record out recently.
Yes, so this morning we are speaking to the living legend who is our very own Sir Cliff Richard, OBE. We haven't wanted to keep him hanging on too long. That's the title of this one that he recorded in 1974, but we've still got so many questions we've got to ask you. And Joan, who's helping us out this morning, who you've met on previous occasions, many a previous occasion, she wants to know, would you consider doing another cruise around the Med? All the fans had a fantastic time, and a lot of people have said that.
Well, and funny enough, I did enjoy it. I wasn't sure what it would be like to be on a ship like that doing concerts, but I must admit I actually enjoyed the whole experience very much, and I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that I was so grateful that the fans were very considerate to me and my sister and my friends who were there. I dined with them every night in the same dining room, except one night, I think when we were too late after the show, I had it in the cabin. But otherwise, and I could see people looking and waving, but that's okay. But they didn't disturb and come up, and I thought that was so nice of them to do that, because we were, all of us, on the same cruise. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. So if the opportunity comes again, yes, I would do another one.
Actually, a lot of people commented on something you've just mentioned. It was nice not only to see your good self, but also to see your family there, because Joan was there.
Yeah.
And a few nieces, nephews, whatever.
She stayed on, of course. Joan stayed on with Martin,
Yeah.
my partner. And I think Susie, my singer, stayed on as well.
Yeah.
So it was nice. It was a great trip. I think they loved it, and the whole thing was organized so well, and we had a theater that holds 1,000 people, so we had 2,000 people on board, so 2 one-hour shows. All of them had seen me, and then I was asked to do another show, and I said, well, wait a minute though, if I only do one more show, only half the boat will come, because you can only get 1,000 people in. So then she said, what about if you do 2 half-hour shows? And then I thought, that's the great way of doing it. I made it slightly different. I came on with my guitar, chatted to them, sang a few of the oldies, then my band came on. So I did 2 half-hour shows.
So you did something similar to what you did at the winery a few years ago?
Yes. That
Just sat there with a guitar and...
as a sort of second option, because I didn't want to just do another 1-hour show when only half the boat would see it. So this way everybody saw everything that we did.
Yeah, and it went down extremely well. Now, here's another quick question for you, going way back. Of course, next Wednesday marks the 50th anniversary of the death of Elvis Presley.
50th?
Yes. 50 years ago.
Oh my goodness, I know. It's a hard
40
to
years
believe.
ago. 40 years ago, isn't
Is
it?
it?
Yeah, 77.
I was going to say,
40 years ago. 40 years ago. I got 50 on the brain for obvious reasons, which I'm coming to. Now, Julie, DT, Tennant, Richard asked the question. Now, if you grabbed the chance to have met Elvis and managed to spend 24 hours with him, how would you have spent that time?
Making an album.
Right, I knew you'd have to think
24
about
hours
that one.
with Elvis would have been way over the top. I would never expect that. I would have begged for 10 minutes, to be honest with you. And the funny thing is, I feel really stupid telling the story, but it's true of me. I made one major mistake in my life, and that was to put off an opportunity to meet Elvis. I was doing some promotional work for Devil Woman in America, and the journalist said to me, well, who inspired you? Where do your influences come from? I said, one person only, Elvis. And I spoke about Elvis in glowing terms, and he said, wait, you're a real fan, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, would you like to meet him? Because I know him. I went, yeah, I'd like to meet him. And then I made the mistake. At the end of the interview, I said to him, look, I'd love to meet him. And yes, you could have your exclusivity for the photographs. But I said, he makes movies every now and then, and he goes on diet. He was at that stage where he had put on a lot of weight. And I noticed that when he made a movie, everything went back down to what the old Elvis. And this is the mistake I made. I was dreaming of having a picture of me with that kind of animal Elvis and stick it on my refrigerator. And the Elvis of that shape wasn't quite right. And I said, let's wait. Big mistake, because within a couple of years Elvis had moved on, and I now feel really stupid. I always think now, if you want to meet somebody, just meet them regardless of what they look like or how old they are.
Exactly. Now, another quick question that comes from Dawn Williams-Barnes, who's the coordinator of the infamous Pink Ladies, who I know you're well aware of. She says, do you have any particular way of learning the lyrics to a new song?
Usually, if you like a song, which is all the songs I've ever recorded I like, so therefore you start the learning process in the studio. You've got your lyrics in front of you, and usually when I'm going on tour, my favorite way of learning it is to actually play line by line. As a line goes by, press the pause button, and then quickly write that line down. Then play the next line, listen to it, okay, then write the second one down. So you now have written it down, and you've started to learn it. And sometimes on stage I found that when a lyric is looked, and I'm coming up to a lyric, and I'm thinking, what's next? I can almost see the rhyming word on the page, and it comes back. So I tend to use that sort of format of listening carefully, writing it, listening, writing, listening, writing, and then from then onwards for a few days I read it while I sing along with the record. But it really begins in the studio, because in the studio all the new songs I've got, I didn't learn them completely. I learned the melodies, and then I just had the lyrics in front of me. And sometimes in the studios, you could do it you could do a line at a time if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
If you were uncomfortable with the song, you'd say, let's do it a verse at a time. And sometimes Bruce Welch, for instance, was very good at that. He'd say, okay, let's do the first verse.
Yeah, he's a very good producer, isn't he?
Oh, very good. He produced one of my favorite albums of all time, my album Greenlight. That's my favorite. He just was fantastic. So you'd say, okay, the verses are easy. The middle eight gets a bit high. Give me a chance to warm my voice up. So we used to do it verse at a time, and then we'd go back and do the middle eight. Then he'd say, okay, now what about doing harmonies on that? So in the end, you've sung it quite a few times, and although it hasn't sunk in completely, the learning process has begun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because just recently I've embarked on trying to produce a demo album for a fairly well-known singer who lives quite near to me, and as you know, I've got the studio on the top of my house, and I've not done this in years. So many things are coming back to me as I'm going along thinking, well, hang on, no, this is what we could do.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to make a mention of our sponsor this hour, and in this mention, they've also sent me a question that I need to ask you. So if I play this, I'm then going to ask you the question that came in from our sponsors, who are, in fact, Dog Emporium on the EM125 at Porsches. Check them out on www.dogemporium.pt. And the question that comes in from Miguel Skinner, who should be here right at this very moment doing her dog spot, but she stood down in favour of you and is listening to you at home. She wants to know, have you had or have you still got any pets, or did you have any when you were growing up? Well, I do know the answer to this extremely well.
Yes, over the years I've had pets, usually dogs. And at the moment, here when I come to Portugal, there are 3 dogs at my farm, and I feel comfortable about those dogs because I have a gardener that lives full time at the house, and of course there's a housekeeper that comes in daily. So I don't feel that when I go away they are left to their own devices. And the funny thing is that although they know them better than they know me, the minute I arrive at the
I bet they remember you.
Of course they do. And sure enough, the next morning when I'm having breakfast on the terrace, they're all there waiting their toes, and I buy the old doggy bits for them to have, and it's great fun to have dogs. So I like dogs very much. Although funny enough, I fell in love with cats as well, but only briefly. In Barbados, friends of mine had cats, and for some reason, for not a cat person at all, really, not that I dislike them, I just always wanted dogs. One of these cats of theirs seemed to and it would sit on the armchair, purring away at me, and I used to tickle its tummy and stuff, and I thought these cats are pretty cool. Actually, some of them they're not the same as dogs in that they don't show their emotions as much, I guess. But there's no doubt that they are attached to people, otherwise they wouldn't keep going back to those homes.
Well, you know the old saying that dogs have masters and cats have slaves. You have to be, you own a dog, but a cat owns you.
I can now, I'm telling you the story of this cat. Yeah, I think that's true.
And you've just proved the point, you see. That cat thought you like dogs, but we're making you like us. So, tickle me tummy, Cliff. Now, here's another question. As you probably know, Hilary Stevenson, who for as many years as I can remember, has played the music at your wine signings.
Oh yeah.
Well, she's got a birthday next week.
Oh really?
On the 16th, ironically, on the day that Elvis died, is Hilary's birthday. And she's also reminding us that another lady you know extremely well, she turned 70 yesterday, and I'm referring to Liz Briggs, your chief tour guide at the winery.
Both of you ladies, well, happy birthday! And Liz, we miss you at the winery. You can pop in any time you like, but leave the wine alone, will you?
Yeah, I tell you what, the whole idea is to actually sell the wine and not to drink it, because she has been known to bring some round here on this show. Now, they specifically want me to play Gee Whiz, It's You, because they change the words and always sing, unbeknownst to you at the winery, Gee Liz, It's You.
Oh, well, that's a good change. Maybe I'll do another version of it.
And when I made the mistake and said about Elvis 50 years ago, what I was thinking of at the time, I was panning this in, because I'm playing the version from the Reunited album that you did on your 50th anniversary, with the boys from the Shads.
The Shads, I know.
So, with a bit of luck, if I put it in correctly while I've been talking to you, we can all hear it now. And this is especially for Hilary and for Liz. Hope you're listening to us wherever you are.
Right. Can I grab a few pictures? Do you want to get those shots for you?
It's only a short song, this. It's like 2 minutes.
Right.
It's 1 minute 57.
Right.
Another question. I've done these. Done that one. Oh yeah. We've got to do them on about the 60 years because there's so many people want years.
Wait. Oh, that's yours. That's not.
Sorry.
Jones cake. That's your piece of cake.
Yeah, I'll
right?
get round
In
to
case
it
you
in a
bought
minute.
it. In case you bought it at Jones.
No.
And I'll say you.
That one you want,
half
Alan?
a cake.
Oh yeah, I'll take it.
You put all that
Can
one
you see
away.
that all right? There's so many names on there.
I've given them. I cut a load of slices and gave it to the fans upstairs. I gave them a few slices, and they're Last Sunday, when you was out here, was it just total impromptu, like, or did Herman Jose contact you beforehand? When you were singing down at the Chicken Festival?
Oh no, they didn't contact me beforehand. They told me on the night, and I said, "What? I can't do that."
I saw that on Facebook.
No, you can't.
Somebody else
me
who's
now.
got to go to
I mean,
Paris
I
as
have a
well.
back to congratulations.
Somebody else
I could have brought if they'd asked me a couple of days before. But anyway, it worked out well. I can't remember the guy's name. It was
Herman Jose. Herman Jose.
Herman Jose.
Yeah.
His little group, two musicians on the track. They worked it all out. It was in the right key. And he asked Bonnie and I to come up, and
Well, you look like Jose Herman on YouTube.
but on
There we are, Hilary and Liz we changed the title of that to Gee Liz, It's You. I hope you had a wonderful 70th birthday yesterday. Right, back chatting to our Sir Cliff, and we've got one question here that came in from Cliffette de France and Marion Donovan, asking any chance we will see you in Paris and in Spain in the future. And then here's this one, and I've got to reel off all these names as quickly as I can. It's Louise Lacal, Sandy Walker from South Africa, Joy Mitchell, Linda McGregor, Bettina Holm, Rena in the Netherlands, Margot Peterson, Gita Nielsen in Denmark, Lynette Tan in Singapore, Sophia Bleekenhorst, Kathy Folliger, Ria Simones, Margaret Harrington, and Paul Dyan from Auckland in New Zealand. And a question from all these people and a whole lot more. I haven't got time to read all the names. How do you plan to spend your 60th anniversary next year? Or will you be doing a world tour? And apart from them wanting to see you in Spain, South Africa, in Paris, they also want to know if you want to go to Singapore.
Oh my God! If I was going to see all these people in all these places they live, I'd have to start to tour tomorrow, and then it would take me 10 years. No, I mean we're thinking about what to do next year. Obviously, it is the 60th year, and it's a sort of milestone for me. I never thought I'd get to be 50, let alone have a 60-year-old career. I thought that we would be dead by the time we were 50. 50 seemed like such an old age when you're 16. But so here we still are, and but things are in motion. But I can't actually say exactly what we're going to do, and if we do it, I'm not even sure where we're going to go. But we're trying to plan something, obviously.
Yeah. Well,
there'll almost certainly be an album out, though. I think there's going to be an album or something out to commemorate 60 years of recording.
Yeah, and they're all asking, will you include on that the Gibb composition? What's it called? Don't Cry Alone.
No, but I plan to record that. I mean, studio record it. I mean, I did it live, and it's a fantastic song that I heard in the middle of my tumultuous, emotionally traumatic couple of years, and it was written by Robin Gibb.
Robin Gibb, yeah.
Yeah, and I found it by accident. I was looking. I'm a big fan of the Bee Gees. They're probably my favorite band of all time. So I was looking up Bee Gees, and suddenly this thing popped up. You know, like sometimes you go to YouTube, and then there's a whole string of stuff at the side, and it said Robin Gibb, and it's a song I'd never heard of. So I punched him in. It brought me to tears listening to it. It was almost as though it was a message for me. You know, that you don't have to cry alone. You're not alone ever. So and I've been playing it recently again, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'd like to make my version of it. His version is phenomenal, though. I love it. I love his voice. You forget, and that he was the main singer, I think, when they first started. When you think about All the Lights Down and Out in Massachusetts, Robin was the one with the lead singer, and then they kind of split up when they did the Staying Alive. Barry took over doing his thing.
Yeah, and then Morris.
Yeah, and then they still did things together, of course. And I must admit, it was they really are still, for me, a fabulous band. I know Barry must feel distraught that he's lost three brothers.
Yeah.
But so, and we were talking about working together one time, and maybe Barry and I. You mentioned our Welsh friend.
Yeah.
Bonnie. We mentioned that maybe we could work together, but the collusions are big things at the moment, and so, and for me, why don't we Bonnie and Barry and me and Olivia?
Well, I actually asked you.
We could kill the world with that 4 numbers.
I actually asked you a question a few years ago that somebody else had posed. They said, out of the modern day singers that are in the charts, is there any particular female that you would like to duet with? And you said Ellie Goulding.
I was driving around. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, though, maybe more. She sang a song that was in a film, and it was called "How Much Shall I Love You? As Long as There Are Stars Above You." And I thought, well, I loved her, the way she sang it. Yeah, so I liked her voice very much. And if the thing about duets is they have to be natural. It has to be like a flow in life. If you try to force one, if you start putting people together, it's usually like when I sang with Van Morrison. He'd had an idea. He'd written the song, And then he'd said, what about if Cliff, then they sent me the song, and I thought, oh, I like that song, it's really nice. And of course, singing with Van Morrison was a thrill for me. And it happened, and it was natural. It was a natural thing. So if something came up, I must admit, she's not contemporary, but I've always been a fan of Mariah Carey's. Now, I don't know whether I would be able to sing with someone who's got a 10-octave range.
Yeah, or somewhere near it.
Yeah,
or it
I
sounds
think
like it.
I got half an octave.
Oh, well, I think you've got a good 4.5. From what I've heard, your range is, the average singer's got 3.5, haven't they?
Well, no, it's less than that, really. I mean, 3 octaves, when you think about it, is I mean, some of it's not usable. And so, I mean, I used to work with a guy called Tony Rivers, and Tony he probably had 3.5, maybe it might even 4, but the 4th octave was such a squeak, you couldn't have used it, but he could do it. He could do it. And I mention him now, actually, because you've mentioned singing in octaves, but my dream is to do an album with Tony Rivers. I want him to be the one that organizes all the harmonies on the record that I would like to make of all the classic Everly Brother love songs. Tony Rivers, his mental capacity for harmonies is ginormous. We'd be on tour together, and we'd all be sitting around in a bar somewhere having a drink after the show, or even before somewhere, or on a day off, and he'd say to me, okay, listen, okay, sing this. And then he'd say to someone else, you sing that one, you sing that one. He goes, okay, 3, 4, and we'd all do our note, and this beautiful Beach Boy plus harmony would come out.
Well,
so he thought in terms of harmonies.
Anything is possible, I guess. Now, it was asking if you were going to record Don't Cry Alone, written by Robin Gibb. That question was asked by Maria Darling, Caroline Bramble, Marilyn Roberts, Joan Williams and Paola Harouche. They also asked, what was your best concert venue and any particular reason why? Whenever.
Worldwide. Well, I have more than a soft spot for the Royal Albert Hall. There's something very prestigious about saying that you're appearing. Americans like to come and play the Royal Albert Hall. I guess it's the royal part that appeals to Americans, but it's also for us as Brits that it's just a great place to play. It's not a huge place.
About 3,500?
It's actually 5,000 capacity, but you're almost right. 4 of the... Oh, you can only sell all 5,000 tickets on 4 of the days. The other 3 days belong to debenture holders. People who it's been in their families since the days that when Queen Victoria, when they had that hall built, they needed money to build it, and people that put money in were given seats in perpetuity. So 3 of the 7 days, you can only sell 3,500. But it doesn't really matter to me. It's the fact that you're playing to 5,000 people, and it's almost as though they're wrapped around you. That there are seats even behind you, but they're not that many, and they're considered bad viewing seats because, of course, they're looking at the band and the singer from behind. That's why when I play there, I make sure I turn around a lot.
Yes, yeah.
But it's the most lovely place to play, and of course, I can play my own trumpet if I may. I hold the record there. I sold out 32 nights.
Yeah, yeah. I know, and in fact you had to do an extra one on the 75th birthday tour, did you not?
I did, yes. We put an extra one on,
yeah. They had to throw one in because I got the stock price sent from Tanya, who said you might like to mention this and promote it, Okay, we've got to do a few messages because Pinky Baloo, Lynn Williamson, Steve Wills and Sarah James also asked, will you be doing a new album? Something you were quoted as mentioning recently, and we all know that's probably on the cards, yet to be decided.
I would like to think that Don't Cry Alone would be on my next new album.
I think it should be.
It would be great, yeah.
A lot of people have been asking this question, so if I haven't included your name, I do apologise, but so many of you asked that very question, as you heard straight from the horse's mouth from Sir Cliff Richard himself. It's a possibility. Let's give you a few messages while we let him get his breath back. Well, we are talking some more with our very own Sir Cliff Richard. Backtracking to the year 1979 right now. Cliff, I'm going to take you back just to 2014, I think it was, when you will remember we sent Elvis Presley tribute Ricky Ryan, who's now in Lanzarote and the Canaries, out in his Elvis suit to pick you up. Do you remember that?
I do.
You know, hell I do.
Good to meet you.
Well, he's been on from Lanzarote to say how much he's enjoyed listening to you this morning and how much he enjoyed his visit with you, and it will remain in his head and his mind and his memory as a treasured memory forevermore.
Good. Most people would consider that damage.
Yeah.
But have a good time in Lanzarote.
Yeah, I think for two bids he'd love to be back here. Now, it leads me to a question from Karen Sissons to say, as we all know on your own admission, you were seriously influenced by the late King Elvis Presley, but she wants to know, is there anybody outside of the music industry who's influenced you?
Oh yeah, there's lots of people. I mean, I had the most wonderful time meeting a saint, and she did become a saint, Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa.
You know, when you meet some people, you're just totally blown away by the simplicity of the faith, by what they're doing for other people, and there's no grandeur about it, no showing off about it. It was just something she did. And so it was very influential for me to meet someone like that. And the other person to do with commitment is Billy Graham. I mean, I know I've chosen two religious people, but maybe that's where I can relate to it, that they were totally and utterly, honestly committed. And it's a lesson for all of us. And you can honestly commit yourself to all sorts of things, not necessarily religion, but to a relationship.
Well, that leads me to ask you a very personal question, that apart from all the support you had through the grey period from your family and your friends, and you know we all stood behind you rock solid, would you admit that it's your Christianity and your faith that also helped you through?
Oh yeah, I think one of the first major things that happened was about 3 nights into that. Actually, it was a black period. But
I was being kind to you.
I know. On the 3rd night, I woke up, and I hadn't been dreaming or anything. I just woke up, and I thought, well, I don't think I can get through this unless I forgive this person. I don't know who he is to this day. I have no idea. And I thought, if I forgive him, then I can ease myself away from what was beginning to happen, the vengeance, my hate. Why is he doing this to me? And when I forgave him, I realize now, of course, when I look back, that really forgiveness is better. It does more good for the person who is the forgiver, because he never knew I forgave him. But because I had forgiven him, I found it a little easier to deal with those black, almost 2 years. So yes, my faith played a major role. And of course, again, that song that you've mentioned about, the Robin Gibb song, Don't Cry Alone, for me that was like a voice. You know, God doesn't speak to us with a physical voice, but he does send messages very often, and I felt that message came to me, that you don't have to cry alone. I felt that God was saying to me, you're not alone, I'll always be with you.
And of course, I Believe in You was really, really popular at the time. You were getting so much support, you know. I know we were being told exactly what was going on, you know, and the average guy would have said, let's find him and give him a good hiding. You handled it in a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way. Now let's talk about, we're talking about downsides, okay. I'm going to ask you a personal question now again, because I think in the business we've been in, and I've been in it nearly, 60 years myself in various ways, and we all have difficult times we have to handle. And apart from doing a one-man show on the day my father died, I remember it was the 31st of July in 1977. I always get up at 5:30 on a Sunday and just check to see what's happened in the world and do my last minute bits of research and lottery numbers. And I leave home 7:30, get here nice and early. And of course that Sunday I woke up to the news that Diana, Princess of Wales, had died tragically in a car crash, allegedly. And I had to change the whole show and did a 4-hour show as a tribute to her. That was probably the hardest radio show I've ever done.
I'm sure.
What is the hardest gig, concert that you've ever done?
Well, there's been a couple of times when, again, there was a death involved in one. There was a guy called George Hoffman who created a thing called Tear Fund, a charity fund that I'd been supporting for many, many years. He had traveled all over the world, and would you believe it? he was run over by a car in Britain on a day that we were about to do a tour, and I was really distraught. Again, he's one of these people that showed commitment, and I find that very educational for me anyway. But that was one of the times it was hard to do the show. But funny enough, the other thing is ridiculous. I had flu once, and the choice was to either do the show or cancel. And I said, well, I'll do the show, because although I had flu, my voice was okay. The hardest thing to do that day was smile. You know, I'd smile all the time, but I couldn't smile, and it was really tough. So there's the two extremes. It was tough not being able to smile. I felt it so difficult to smile, and the other one was because I was almost in tears all the way through. So there are all sorts of reasons why things might become difficult if you're a performer.
Yeah. So you could do usual bit when you see somebody with a camera going, you know, the young one.
Oh yeah. Oh well, that's. Oh, whenever you see me with pulling the microphone away from my face, it's usually because I'm burping. That's why I don't eat before a show.
Yeah.
I can't eat before the show.
Now, quick question from Carol Ann in Waltham Cross.
Oh.
Any chance you're going to do a wine signing in the UK?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, because in point of fact, the biggest sales we have, of course, are in Portugal now, and also they buy it in Denmark. And I'm meeting up with some Swiss people who sell it in Switzerland, so I'm not quite sure really how that's going to work. I think it's still available in Britain, but I don't know, to be honest with you.
We're not allowed to mention, but a well-known chain of supermarkets do stock the wines.
Oh, do they?
In the UK.
Well,
just shop around and you'll find it. Right?
But funny, if you mentioned from Waltham Cross, that's the first time I ever heard Elvis. Was a car pulled up outside a newsagent's in Waltham Cross. The guy jumped out, maybe to buy a newspaper or something, and the windows were down, his radio was on, and we heard, well, since my baby left me. My friends and I were around the car, and before we found out who it was, he drove off. And we all went home, and then one of my friends came around and said, I've just heard it. It's a guy called Elvis Presley, and we were listening in those days to the American Forces Network, AFN, and that's for Waltham Cross where I first heard Elvis. That changed my life.
Talking of locations, I think it was Con Harrington or his buddy Dan who asked the question. Apart from the places where you have or own homes, is there any country in the world that's a favourite for you?
You know, it's how difficult to answer that kind of question, because I like to visit places where people love what you do, and so it makes it easier to perform. So everywhere I go, people behave pretty well the same. Actually, rock and roll kind of leveled all the different countries out. They all seem to like rock and roll. But the Shadows and I had a great successful time in all the countries that we travel. I do have a soft spot, I suppose, for Australia. It's just so far away, but they are a very open nation. They live outdoors. They like rock and roll. They seem to have liked me over the years, and so that's the only place I remember writing back to my family once, sending postcards saying, if this was closer to Berlin, Paris and London, I think I could live here.
Yeah.
And my family all got terribly worried that I was planning to move there, but of course it was at those days particularly impossible to live there and still have a career everywhere else in the world.
Well,
and of course,
talking Australia, I've got a question for you coming up, but we're heading towards the midday hour, so I've got to do a little bit of this because I know you've got to leave us very shortly, and I've got still so many questions to ask you. Why are you so popular? I think I know the answer to that. Keep it, Kiss. And on this final hour of a Solid Gold Sunday on Portugal's Kiss FM alongside Pestana Golf and Resorts, we're also offering an Access Algarve voucher book, and this week with a very special edition. You will also have a personalised signed photograph by Sir Cliff Richard himself. Now our question this week is, what percentage discount can you get with an Access Algarve voucher at Cliff's Winery, the Adega de Cantor? Answers only by text to 92650 40 41, and the first one with the correct answer will get an Access Algar voucher book, which you have to collect from our office, together with a personalised signed photo of Cliff Richard. And of course, he's still with us. I know he's desperate to get away, but you're still there, Cliff.
Oh yeah, I'm not desperate to get away, but I need to.
I know.
At some point.
You always do this too, because you come here, you tell me you come here to relax, and I purposefully leave you alone and go through all the right channels rather than disturb you personally.
I know, and I appreciate that.
And you've got so many people hanging around you putting demands on your time.
I know. Well, that's life, isn't it, though? But as I say, I've had the most fabulous so far. I've been here for a couple of weeks, and I've had very relaxed, easy time. Fantastic. I've got guests arriving today, and then they'll continue to arrive now for the next 3 weeks.
That serves you right, and I now want to clarify something that everybody's been asking me, and I have answered this question, but we're talking about your favourite places. Now, I can't remember whether it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. I actually asked you, out of all the properties that you own and you have, you said to me, if I could only ever keep one, it would be the one in the Algarve. Have you changed your mind on that at all?
No, not really. I mean, it's been the most fantastic haven for me here, and my black years, the 2 black overshadowed years, I couldn't have had a better place to escape to. And the interesting thing is, that when that bad news broke, I was at the Quinta here in the Algarve.
It was the day after you'd been on the show.
I know. And when the good news broke, 22 months and 2 days later, I was at the Quinta. So I will always have a soft spot for that place.
So no intentions of selling the Quinta?
Oh well, I think I'm trying to downsize, and also I will be selling it at some point. There's no doubt, because I can't go on owning all these homes. And they are a bit of a drain on you sometimes. But of all the places that I've bought and lived in, it's still going to be, regardless of whether I sell it or not, in my memory, it will be a place that will have a soft spot.
But no immediate plans to do that?
Not immediate, not like next week.
Okay. Right, now, all the way from Los Angeles in California, Claudette asked the question, would you ever consider appearing on the TV show Who Do You Think You Are, where it traces your ancestry?
Yeah, but it does kind of appeal to me, but it does seem to me that it takes a long time to do that show. It's quite a long process. It isn't something that you go away for a weekend and do. And I've got to that stage in my life now where, for instance, I don't think I'll ever do a show as I did with Heathcliff, where you have to commit yourself for like 6 months to do something. I'd much rather go around and get to see fans in a tour that maybe lasts a month here, a month there, and plenty of time off in between to have a bit of a life. Because what's very demanding in our industry is that it demands your life, and unless you're committed to, coming back to commitment and dedication, I did commit myself and dedicate myself to my career, and I've lived with it ever since. So now all I'm trying to do is open up my life a little bit more, so that in between doing all the nice things that I do, the working things that I do, I've got times when I can just be myself.
Now, talking about making TV shows, Marianne Annis in Canada asked the question, do you regret having not made more movies?
No, because the reason why I stopped making movies was that, remember, in the time, like the Elvis period, and then immediately after that, me with the Shadows, we were making films for film companies that wanted to use our stature as artists, as famous singers, musicians. And of course we had successful movies with the Young One, Summer Holiday, One for Life, a whole bunch of them. But in the end, I kept thinking to myself, why are they not moving me on? When we make records, I started with Move It. Then we went to something like Living Doll, which was different. Then we went to something like Devil Woman. Then we don't talk anymore. In other words, you were moved forward in your career. With the films, they all seem to be pretty well based on a singer and a band in similar situations. On the road or whatever. Yeah, and then I thought, well, this is not actually helping become... and suddenly, of course, I realized how low budget our movies were when you think of Star Wars coming and costing multi-billions to make. So I thought I'd rather make a really good album than a bad movie, and so I stopped making movies because they didn't seem to be pushing me anymore. They didn't force me forward.
Hang on, right, the first in, we can tell you. Oh, how do you pronounce that? It's Irish. It's an Irish name.
Is it spelt?
S-T-R-O-H-A-N-I-E, Welsh.
Yeah.
And our PA man is asking the question, could this be Bruce Welsh's sister? And the answer to what percentage discount can you get with an Access Algarve voucher at Cliff's Winery, the Adega de Cantor, is 20%. And there's our winner. So I can't pronounce the name, so I'll get Cliff to write it on one of his photographs.
Okay.
And our winner, if you'd like to call by our office during the course of the week, you can pick up your photograph and your Access Algarve book as well. And while he's signing that, see if you'd like to do a little bit of dancing with our Cliff Richard. Yes, and regrettably we can't take any more questions now. We're getting towards the end of them. A lot of you have asked the same questions, so hopefully we've answered them all. But there will be another occasion, because the Sir Cliff Richard Special Solid Gold Sunday has been appearing annually for goodness knows how many years, and I'm sure we'll have another one next year. Right now, 11 minutes past the midday hour with Sir Cliff Richard OBE in the studio. And thanks for all the questions that have been pouring in. We'll check just to see if we've got any last minute ones, but I don't think it's possible we can deal with them. But Cliff, you were saying that, you know, yes, apart from the lovely homes you've got all here, there and everywhere, you've got a soft spot for Australia. Well, Hank moved to Perth, Western Australia, many years ago for the benefit of the children. But he was back in London with Brian and Warren Bennett, and he was recording an album called Without a Word, I do believe. Lisa Davis.
That's his latest album, his new one.
Yes. Lisa, who you linked up with just before, for tea. How genteel was that, before the Lincoln Castle gig? Lisa Davis, you met up with her,
of course,
yeah, and she sends you her love.
Oh, bless her, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, and I know she's listening this morning. And by the way, Lisa, I'm still waiting for my copy of that album, Without a Word, by Hank.
It's fabulous. I've
have
played
you got
it.
one?
Yeah, on the way to Scarborough, I played it twice through, straight away.
Really?
Yeah, fabulous.
And what sort of style? Because he went playing some kind of different genre over there.
Well, yeah, the album I heard, the previous album was called Django's Castle. Django Reinhardt, a tribute to him. So it was sort of gypsy jazz, and I was so proud of Hank, because considering this is the man that just played the Do You Want to Dance rock and roll guitar solo, suddenly playing gypsy jazz, it was so beautiful, so fantastic, and I thought, I cannot believe this man can do all these different things. And then now the new album is back to playing well-known melodies with the famous Hank Marvin sound, you know, that beautiful guitar sound that was Wonderful Land, all the big, he created, and that's the music, in fact, that helped to create the Eric Claptons of this world, and the Chris Reas and people like that, who were so influenced by Hank. And I mean, you know, Hank has a lot to be proud of.
And I think, so have you, because you had such a good team of guys behind you. Originally the Drifters, in the Shadows, they were called here, and they're still going strong now.
It was the same band, we just had to change the name, because we started off with the name The Drifters. I created the name The Drifters, and then I invited Hank and Bruce to play, and they became The Drifters. But we discovered very quickly the Drifters from America, of course. We didn't realize they'd already been the Drifters for 5 or 6 years. So we backed down, and I can't remember, I think it was Jet Harris that thought of the name The Shadows. And of course that's become the iconic name. The Shadows is the name that they'll always be remembered by.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you mentioned Jet Harris. It was way back in 1961 when I first met you, Joey Lee's coffee shop, and you were there then with Resta Saldana and Jackie, Jet Harris and Tony Meehan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I think your sisters then were just simply sweet little 16.
They were.
Yeah, so at 23 minutes past the hour of 12 noon, we are coming towards the end of the time that Sir Cliff can spare with us. So just a couple of quick questions for you, Cliff. Linda Crocar from Enfield and Emmanuel Garcet in France says, amongst other things, will you be doing a photo shoot this year for the new calendar?
I don't know at the moment because I'm not quite sure. Normally I do the photo shoots in Barbados, and I won't be there, of course, till the new year, which means it'll be for the calendar for the following year, won't it? So I've got a feeling that I won't be doing one for this coming year.
So you're not doing a calendar?
Well, if I do,
what's Joan going to hang on her kitchen wall?
Picture of you. Oh no, she wants people to visit her, doesn't
yes, and she doesn't want to give them indigestion.
No, but you know,
I do love him, really.
I found myself at a point where it's hard to know how I can make this face and this body look any different, and they were all looking the same to me. So I'm going to suggest a couple of things to people. Maybe do a themed calendar, you know, a movie thing, and then they dress me up in different characters from movies, but something that makes it interesting for everybody. But the last calendar, you know, was last December. My calendar, which was a compilation of previous photographs, it was #1 in the British calendar chart. Ask me who was #2.
Go on, who was #2, Cliff?
Justin Bieber.
Let's not talk about age differences here then. We won't mention that in the slightest. But I'll tell you what, I know you've got to leg it any minute.
You got one though from Val?
Yes, you've reminded me that my wife Val, like you, watches Wimbledon, and she said you've got to ask Cliff. She said because all the press and all the television shots review arriving or leaving Wimbledon on every single day, and she said he looked a picture. He was so dapper and so suave. And my wife Val's question to you, and you know her very well, she said, do you actually choose your own clothes, Cliff, or have you got a stylist?
In general, I choose my own clothes, but every now and then, for instance, if they say, oh, we need to do a commercial for the new album, they'll have her bring in a stylist, and then she or he will bring in a whole bunch of clothes, and then I look at them and say, what about this, what about that way. But generally speaking, for instance, all the clothing that I wear for Wimbledon is all our suits and jackets and stuff that I bought, and sometimes I buy a jacket for Wimbledon, because when I first became a member there, I wore, over the first 3 days, I wore a different jacket every day. And on the third day, this woman, one of the people who works for the army, you know, they have them in controlling the crowds and things, she came up to me, she said, oh, Sir Cliff, what colour is that jacket you're wearing today? And I said, oh, I think they told me it was called crushed strawberry. And she went, oh good.
Ideal for Wimbledon.
Yeah, well, so I said to her, well, why do you want to know? And she said, oh, because now we take a bet every day as to what colour jacket you're going to wear tomorrow. Well, no pressure. Well, I then felt, oh my goodness, now I have 13 different looks, and I add every year a new suit or a new jacket, so that I don't wear the same thing all the time.
You've made a rod for your own back now, you see, because you're going to have to go out and buy more suits. The only request I got for you, if you could just grow a couple of inches and put on another stone in weight, when you get fed up with them, I'll have them. How about that?
I'll see what I can do for you.
Now, talking about getting set up, many, many years ago, Bill Latham, who you and I know extremely well, he got in touch with me yesterday, and he said it was good to catch up with you a few weeks ago, and finding you looking so fit. He says, have another great morning, you guys, and please give my love to the boss, referring to you, Cliff, and he sends best wishes to me and Val, who we've just been talking about. Well, you will remember, I got in touch with him, I think it was 10 years ago, and said, I really want to pick some Cliff music that he may well have forgotten about. And he said, I tell you what, have you got 31st of February album?
Oh.
I said, yes, I have. He said, well, he's probably forgotten that.
Yeah, that's from way back. That was a good title, 31st of February Street.
Yeah.
I'd gone to Madeira, and there was a street there called the 29th of February Street. And of course, I chose 31st of February because there is no 31st of February. there are only 28 days or 29 days clear. And so to me that was a clever little thing to do. But good old Bill. Do you think he's listening now? Hi Bill, if you're listening, hi.
He won't, because I'll tell you why. He told me it'll probably go on the podcast later and he'll catch it. He's on his way to Denmark to link up with his wife. He's travelling even as we speak.
Oh, how fantastic. Well, have a good time, you two. Bill and Linda?
Yes, I'm sure they're going to have a great time, and I know the car's standing by to whiz you off, because you did say at the very latest I must get away at 12:30. So on behalf of everybody, we're going to thank him once again, our very own Sir Cliff Richard, for giving up part of his so-called relaxing holiday here in Portugal, and we love him dearly. And it's nice to see you back here, and we'll keep in touch as we always do, and we wish you continued good health and continued great success.
Fantastic.
It's been our
Thank
pleasure. Nice round of applause to our very own.
Maybe, don't forget, maybe Bonnie can join us next time.
Well, hopefully.
That was fun, wasn't it? Last time we did that.
We did,
Okay.
yes, and we'll get you harmonising on the air, doing congratulations both in the same
Oh my,
key.
it's hard to harmonise with someone going,
Congratulations! But I'll tell you what, it's fabulous seeing you look so fit and well, and you've definitely brought back that old familiar feeling.
Oh,
yes.
I know what you're going to play. Go on, play it. And I'll say goodbye. Thank you.
And lovely to see you. We love you dearly, you know that.
Thank you.